Which tree is better never to touch? Which tree is dangerous and everything? Which plants are a threat to poor animals? And which are considered the most poisonous in the world? You'll learn about this and much more in this episode about creepy flora of our planet. Let's go! Which trees do you think are very dangerous? I think that few of you will be able to answer this question now because when we talk about danger in nature, we usually think about animals, not trees. But some of them do pose a threat, and in different ways at that. For example, this one. This tree immediately warns with its appearance that it's better not to touch it. At the very least, one can get pricked a little with these unfriendly and creepy thorns which the trunk is studded with, and at the worst, one can get a deep enough wound. If I saw such a tree, I would immediately move away from it, just in case. But even that might not have kept me safe. You have to stay very far away from this tree. The thing is that it has unusual fruit which ripen in an original way. When they're ripe, they explode and fly apart like a hand grenade. Oh, sorry, I forgot to introduce you. It's a dynamite tree. Now do you see why it's called that? It has a more scientific name, the sandbox tree or Cura crepitans. Of course, the fruit of the tree is not as effective as real hand grenades, but believe me, it will not be pleasant. The fragments fly 300 plus feet at a speed of 155 miles per hour, just enough to inflict some wounds. If you travel in Central America and see a tree with a red stripe or ribbon, I would not recommend you go near. Don't worry, it won't be any frag fruit, but the tree is still a killer and extremely dangerous. It's the most dangerous tree in the world, to be more precise. It's the manchineel tree. If the dynamite tree poses a danger with its spiky trunk and hand grenade-like fruit, this one poses a danger with literally everything. The thing is, the manchineel tree is poison in the guise of a tree. It has poisonous fruit that resemble apples, poisonous bark, branches, and leaves. Even touching this tree is not recommended. And if a person tries to cut it down or set it on fire, it can kill them. I'm serious. When cutting or sawing, the manchineel tree sprays caustic poison in all directions. If it gets in a human's eye, they can go blind. And when burned, the tree emits extremely toxic smoke. Should I say why you shouldn't eat the manchineel tree fruit? In short, you can either get very severe or fatal poisoning. This is one of the few trees in the world near which you can find a warning sign that it's very dangerous. Honey locust. This tree looks like it's been wrapped in barbed wire. Could it be so rare that it's being guarded? Of course not, it's part of the tree itself. The honey locust is one of the most unfriendly and dangerous trees on the planet. It has long prickles of different types. Some are simple, like swords, and some are thrice-branched, which gave the plant its Latin name, Gladitia triacanthos. Some can reach up to 12 inches in length. And I didn't say about the barbed wire at the beginning without reason. The honey locust is literally a live barbed wire. Some people even plant it on the perimeter of their territory near fences as additional protection. It's possible to break through the prickly plant painlessly only in armor. Did you think that was it? Not at all. The honey locust is dangerous not only with its thorns but also with its poison. The most poisonous in this plant are young leaves. Old leaves and flowers are less poisonous. Bark and seeds are even less poisonous. In small therapeutic doses, this poison is even useful. But in large doses, it can cause changes in the liver, congestion in the brain, pneumonia, and other scary things. If you walk on the African savannas, at some point you may hear a whistling sound. What is it? A snake lurking and preparing an attack? Maybe. Or maybe it's a whistling thorn. It's not the tree itself that whistles, but the bulbous bases of its thorns. That's the main feature of this acacia. There's another barbed wire that can hurt. Do you understand that it's not worth touching this tree? But you're unlikely to get to it because it grows in savannas full of very dangerous animals. A very interesting feature of the whistling thorn is the very bulbous bases of the thorns. Ants live in them. This is an example of mutual benefit or symbiosis in the wild. Ants use the hollow, thorny, bulbous bases as their homes and make holes in them, and the holes, in turn, produce a whistling sound that scare animals away from the branches and leaves of the tree. As a result, the ants have a home, and the chance of any animal eating the acacia decreases. But it doesn't go to zero. Whistling thorns are actively eaten by giraffes that don't seem to care about the thorns. Also, sometimes elephants eat these acacias, but there's a catch. If an elephant tries to eat a branch covered with ants, the ants will penetrate in the trunk of the elephant and start biting it from the inside. Therefore, elephants rarely eat these acacias. As you can see, the whistling thorn is more dangerous to animals than to humans. There's one more plant that animals shouldn't touch. Otherwise, the consequences will be even more unpleasant. I'm talking about the birdcatcher tree. It looks like an ordinary tree, but it has a surprise. It really likes to tightly press animals to itself and no longer let them go. The thing is that the seed pods of the birdcatcher tree are very densely covered with mucus and small hooks. Not only small insects can get stuck in this mucus, but also birds. It's they which most often fall into the trap, hence the name of the tree. Even an adult and strong bird can find it very difficult to get out of this slime and break free, let alone chicks. They have no chance. Someone dies from hunger, someone dies from the claws and teeth of predators, someone is luckier. If people find the chick, they can easily get it out of the trap. By the way, the birdcatcher tree is often grown at home. In room conditions, the tree reaches 3.2 to 5 feet in height, but barely bloom, therefore doesn't bear any fruit. But you don't have to fear for your life or your parrot that will fly out of the cage and accidentally land on the plant. Strychnine tree. This tree can be found in tropical South Asia, Africa, and northern Australia. It grows up to 50 feet tall. Nothing unusual, really. That is, until we look at the strychnine tree fruit. They look like this, and they're called vomit nuts. Like the whole tree, it even has such a Latin scientific name. As you can imagine, this is another case where it's best not to touch the tree. Well, or at least not to taste its fruit under any circumstances. Actually, I don't know who would pick and eat fruit from an incomprehensible tree, but you should know it just in case. The thing is, the fruit contains strychnine, an extremely toxic poison. It was once used to poison harmful rodents, and believe me, there is enough poison not only for rats or mice. For a person, it may well be fatal. Strychnine affects the central nervous system, leading to malfunctions in its work. As a result, death occurs from suffocation. As you can see, there are many dangerous trees in the world that you should stay away from. But there are also shrubs and other plants. They may not have big trunks with thorns or poisonous fruit, but it's still better to stay away from them. You're about to see them. Gympie Gympie. I'm sure that if you were walking through some Australian tropical forest and saw this plant from afar, you wouldn't even pay attention to it. Yes, it has large and broad leaves. So what? There are plenty of other plants with even wider leaves, but we don't pay attention to them. But Gympie Gympie is a unique plant because it's the most poisonous in all of Australia, and some people think it's the most poisonous in the world. If you take a closer look at it, the pieces begin to fit. The Gympie Gympie leaves have serrated edges. And what else do we know of this type? Of course, nettles. But there's nothing to be surprised at, since Gympie Gympie is also nettles because it belongs to the nettle family. However, Gympie Gympie is much more dangerous than ordinary nettles that grow in your backyard or in the neighboring forest. The hairs that cling to the Gympie Gympie leaves contain neurotoxins and can easily puncture the skin. Touching Gympie Gympie, a person will doom themselves to painful sensations that will last for several days. In some cases, victims are even hospitalized. It's not without reason that Gympie Gympie is called the stinging tree. It deserves this name like no other. By the way, do you know why nettles sting at all? Scientists believe that stinging provides nettles with a defense against herbivorous animals. It's a mechanism that nettles have evolved evolutionarily. Gimpy seems to have overdone it. Its power is more than enough for any herbivore. In neighboring New Zealand, it's just as dangerous, at least in terms of nettles. It's home to ongawanga. It can grow up to 16 feet tall. The ongawanga leaves are much less friendly than even those of gimpy. They seem to shout that they're ready to kill anyone who comes near them. And it's true. The New Zealand nettles are dozens of times more powerful and painful than the ones we were stung by in childhood or during a vacation in nature. That's because its prickles are very large and stinging, and they contain formic acid and histamine. At the very least, such a combination will give someone who just touches the plant a burn. But it's still okay. It's much creepier to fall into such a bush. Several dogs and horses and at least one person became victims of ongawanga, accidentally falling into this ominous nettles. And now I'll tell you what the most dangerous frog in the world can do. Bullfrog. How do you imagine frogs? You probably think of a small green creature somewhere in a swamp which you could easily fit on your palm if a frog jumped on it. With a bullfrog, this is unlikely to work. This is one of the largest frogs on the planet, which reaches 10 inches in length and weighs more than a pound. You have to really try hard to get one of those on your palm. But is it necessary? I don't think so. After all, the bullfrog is not only very big, but also very dangerous. At least many animals are afraid of it. You bet. Just look at how this monster mercilessly deals with a dangerous scorpion and a bat. They're in the same container as the amphibian. At first, the scorpion and the bat sort things out on their own while the frog just looks at them. But then it steps in and, with a sharp movement, grabs the bat and then eats it. You can be sure that the scorpion will meet the same fate. Just as surely, the frog can deal with someone less dangerous. A hornet, for example. The frog manages to kill and eat the hornet before it stings it, let alone mice. The bullfrog eats them for a snack like small insects. In addition, it feeds on mollusks and spiders, but sometimes it can even eat its own relatives. I'm talking about no less dangerous relative than the bullfrog is, a poison dart frog. Golden poison frog. Here is one of the representatives of those very poison dart frogs. Like other poison dart frogs, the golden poison frog is not large. These amphibians grow to only 1.5 to 2 inches in length. Of course, they cannot eat a large scorpion, a bat, or even an ordinary mouse, but they can simply kill over 20,000 mice. That's because the golden poison frog is the most poisonous frog on the planet, as well as one of the most poisonous vertebrates in general. These amphibians contain about 1 milligram of batrachotoxin. It seems negligible, but just 1/500th of that dose is enough to kill an adult human. What's particularly creepy is that the frog doesn't even need to bite anyone. A mere touch on the frog's skin is enough to get lethal poisoning. This is the reason why you should never touch these amphibians. You should admire these beauties strictly from a distance. By the way, the unusual yellow color of the frog indicates precisely that it is incredibly poisonous. Blue poison dart frog. Next, we have a relative of the golden poison frog. As the name suggests, the blue poison dart frog belongs to the same family of toxic amphibians. In many ways, these creatures are similar. The blue poison dart frog is also small and only grows up to 2 inches in length. Like the golden poison frog, it's very bright and very poisonous. The skin glands of the blue poison dart frog secrete mucus, which protects the animal from both fungi and bacteria as well as from its natural enemies. However, this is an extreme measure. Many predators are scared away from the very warning bright coloration of the blue poison dart frog, so they may try to stay away from it. The frog is very dangerous for small insects and animals, but for humans its poison is not as powerful as that of the golden poison frog. Still, you shouldn't try your fate. Like the golden poison frog, the blue poison dart frog is strictly not recommended to pick up. However, this does not discourage many thrill seekers who keep these frogs in their homes as exotic pets. I forgot to tell you that the golden poison frog and the blue poison dart frog can be found in South and Central America. Another creepy amphibian can also be found there. It's the cane toad. These toads can also be found in Australia and parts of Southeast Asia. They're true giants from the amphibian world. The cane toad is the second largest toad in the world, reaching up to 9.4 inches and a weight of 2.5 pounds. And sometimes there are record holders weighing up to 5.5 pounds and a length of 16 inches. Taking advantage of its size, the cane toad easily hunts many animals. These amphibians enjoy eating arthropods, bees, beetles, snails, and lizards, but they seem to like mice the most. Look how swiftly the cane toad swallows mice. It's a real hunter. But what's even more interesting is that the cane toad is an extremely poisonous creature, and it's poisonous at all life stages. When an adult toad is potent, it affects the heart and nervous system, causing profuse salivation, convulsions, nausea, arrhythmia, and increased blood pressure. In some cases, the poison can paralyze the victim or even kill them. Moreover, a simple contact with the glands is enough for poisoning, as in the case of poisoned dart frogs. Many aborigines of South America know about the toad's superpowers. They still use the amphibian's powerful poison to whet arrowheads, obtaining lethal weapons. It's difficult to say which frog or toad is the most dangerous in the world. It's not easy to compare the deadly poison of the golden poison frog, the unreal appetite of the bullfrog, or the hunting ability of the cane frog. Decide for yourself. Write in the comments which frog or toad you think is the most dangerous in the world. And stay tuned, because you'll see the largest frog on the planet, learn about glass frogs, and see some frogs' ability to actually fly. Goliath frog. Looking at pictures of people holding a Goliath frog, it's hard to believe that this creature's real. It seems as if these pictures have been photoshopped, but believe me, there's not a bit of Photoshop, because this is the largest frog in the world. Not for nothing, they called it Goliath, because these creatures can reach almost 40 inches in length, about 10 inches in width, and weigh up to 13 pounds. To give you a better understanding, the average house cat's about the same size. Unfortunately, these creatures are an endangered species. They're not easy to find. They live in Africa, in southwest Cameroon, and Equatorial Guinea. What's interesting, unlike many other frogs which don't care what water to live in, Goliath frogs can be called capricious. They like to live only in crystal clear water full of oxygen. Despite its size, the Goliath frog is not dangerous to humans. It won't attack them. Rather, it'll run away on its own because the Goliath frog is extremely timid. These amphibians notice everything that moves around at a distance of 130 feet, and if they feel threatened, they leap 10 feet into the water. Sometimes the Goliath frog makes 6 to 7 jumps at once, so in a few seconds it can be far away from its potential offender. And this is the exact opposite of the giant frogs from Africa. The species Pidophyron amoensis can be rightly called microfrogs, or even nanofrogs. Scientists described the species only 10 years ago, which isn't surprising because these babies are extremely hard to find. Reaching a length of only 0.3 inches, Pidophyron amoensis is the smallest frog on the planet. Look, it can even fit on a coin. They live in Papua New Guinea. Of course, they do not pose any threat to humans or even small animals. They hunt the tiniest insects possible and often fall prey to predators themselves. They hide from them in thick leaf litter of tropical forests. But you can't hide from anyone anyway, so these babies are often eaten by scorpions and many invertebrates. But on a global scale, it's not so bad, because despite their size, these frogs are an important link in the food chain. Ever wonder what kind of inner world frogs have? I mean, literally. How are their organs arranged and stuff? Usually you have to dissect a frog to get the answer to this question, but in the case of the glass frog, it's easier. You just have to look at its abdomen. These creatures are some of the most unusual frogs on the planet because they're translucent. The skin on their abdomen resembles glass because you can perfectly see through it the frog's internal organs, liver, heart, digestive tract, and sometimes even eggs in females. In general, these translucent creatures are quite harmless. They live in trees and mountain forests and only reach water during the breeding season. But insects should not be relaxed. These amphibians can be cruel to many of them. Take a look at what happened to this poor cricket. Flying frog.
All frogs are great jumpers, and some are great pilots. Flying frogs are just the latter. These frogs can't boast wings or a propeller or anything like that, but they fly well. In fact, their flight is just a long jump. But what a jump! Whereas ordinary frogs can only move a few meters in a jump, a flying frog can fly for about 50 feet after only one push. When the frog needs to get down from the tree to the ground, it makes a jump and performs its gliding flight. It lands successfully and softly because the amphibian is very tenacious.
These frogs are undoubtedly dangerous creatures, but now I'll show you animals that even lions are afraid of. Mountain gorilla. Let's start with an unexpected creature. Gorillas are huge primates, the largest of all, and mountain gorillas are even more so. This subspecies ranks first in terms of size. Males, though short, about 5 feet tall, are heavy. Their weight reaches 805 pounds. Females are much smaller. They're 3 to 4 times lighter. Unlike many other heavy animals, much of the mountain gorilla's weight comes from its muscles, not its skin or fat. These giants are incredibly strong, capable of dragging or lifting objects 10 times heavier than their weight. They are 10 times stronger than humans and have not the kindest disposition. A gorilla in a rage is creepy. Don't forget about the sharp teeth of the primate with which it tears even dense fruit. With all this in mind, we can say that the mountain gorilla would be able to deal with the lion. A gorilla could intimidate a lion with its mere sight by straightening up and beating its chest. Also, the mountain gorilla is smarter than the lion and makes better use of the terrain. If the fight were to take place in the gorilla's territory, the primate would probably come out the winner. But if a lion and a gorilla fought in the open savanna, the king of the jungle would have the advantage. And if it came to the showdown with the pride, the primate would be finished for sure. The good news is that such showdowns are almost completely ruled out. You can only fantasize about them, because gorillas and lions live in different places, though live on the same continent. Now let's move on to the lion's real enemies, and the first and most important of them is, of course, the hyena. It's the main opponent of the lion throughout Africa. The main reason for this is the food for which they compete, because they eat the same things. Often hyenas take prey from other predators or eat carrion, which they find, but often they hunt themselves and do it successfully. They can even hunt the lion. The main weapon of hyenas is not so much an incredible bite force or aggression, but rather a numerical advantage. These creatures try to act in large groups. Their clan can total 10 to 20 animals, and no matter how tough a lion is, it'll never deal with 10 dangerous predators at once. It can only hope for help or escape. Otherwise, the predator will be finished off easily. On the other hand, if there are at least 2 or 3 lions, they can fight off one of the hyenas from the clan and kill it. And if the battle is one-on-one, a hyena has no chance. A lion will simply tear it apart. After all, the size matters. Speaking of size, the next opponent of lions is a record breaker in this respect because it's the tallest animal on the planet. Of course, this is the giraffe. These creatures are herbivores and not aggressive. Giraffes try to keep neutral and stay away from any African brawls, but lions do not give them any peace and periodically hunt them. The lion's main goal is to knock the giraffe down, because then it'll be vulnerable in no time. To do this, lions hunt in prides. One catches up with the giraffe, another lion trips it up and tries to gnaw on it, while the third lion ambushes the giraffe in front. But the giraffe is very strong, and it's not easy to knock it down. It's more likely to knock down a lion itself and stomp on it. If the fight's calmer, a giraffe can simply hit a lion with its hoof. One precise blow by this animal, weighing a ton, will be enough to knock a lion out, or at least discourage it from hunting. If by some miracle lions do get to a giraffe and even climb on it, it's still too early to celebrate the victory. The giraffe's skin is very thick, so even the sharp and long lion's teeth won't penetrate it so easily. Lions may simply get bored with the hunt and leave a giraffe alone. The only way to defeat the giraffe is to make it move in different directions. Lions can cling to its legs, pull it in different directions, or distract the giant's attention from left to right. It's obligatory to have a lion which will jump on a giraffe from behind at this moment. Then there's a chance that the giant will lose its balance and fall prey to the predators. That's all, guys. What animal do you personally consider to be the strongest opponent for the lion? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.